He was born in a desert tent, a poor boy who grew up to become one of the world's most feared and flamboyant dictators. For 42 years, Muammar Gaddafi ruled Libya with an iron fist, leaving behind a legacy that is as controversial as it is complex. This is the story of how a revolutionary hero became a fallen strongman. Born in 1942 to a Bedouin family, Gaddafi grew up hating the foreign powers that dominated his country. He was inspired by Arab nationalists like Egypt's Gamal Abdel Nasser and dreamed of a united, powerful Arab world. In 1969, at just 27 years old, he got his chance. As a young army officer, he led a bloodless military coup, overthrowing Libya's King Idris while he was away. Almost overnight, the monarchy was gone. Gaddafi promised a new dawn of independence, social justice, and Arab unity. For a moment, many saw him as a hero. Gaddafi didn't want a typical government. He created his own political philosophy, laid out in his infamous Green Book. He called his new system the Jamahiriya, or state of the masses, claiming that the people themselves would rule. But this was a fantasy. In reality, there were no real elections. Political parties were banned, and any form of opposition was brutally crushed. All power belonged to one man, Gaddafi. For over 4 decades, he maintained his grip through pure terror. His secret police were everywhere. Arbitrary arrests, public executions, and assassinations of critics, even those living in exile, were common. Thousands were imprisoned and tortured. One of the darkest chapters of his rule was the 1996 Abu Salim Prison Massacre, where over 1,200 political prisoners were systematically killed. Fear was the foundation of his state. Using Libya's immense oil wealth, Gaddafi projected his influence far beyond its borders. He funded rebel groups and militias across Africa, positioning himself as a revolutionary leader supporting liberation movements. He was a vocal champion of African unity, even proposing a United States of Africa. While some African leaders admired his anti-Western stance and his generous funding of infrastructure projects, many others saw him as a destabilizing force. His relationship with the West was explosive. In the 1980s, Libya became a pariah state, accused of sponsoring international terrorism. The most notorious incident was the 1988 bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland, which killed 270 people. The world responded with crippling sanctions that isolated Libya for years. But in the early 2000s, Gaddafi made a surprising pivot. He accepted responsibility for Lockerbie, paid compensation to the victims' families, and abandoned his weapons of mass destruction programs. It seemed the old dictator was trying to rejoin the international community. This brief period of reconciliation came to a dramatic end in 2011. Inspired by the Arab Spring uprisings sweeping the region, Libyans took to the streets to demand an end to his rule. Gaddafi's response was swift and merciless. He called the protesters rats and vowed to hunt them down house by house. As the country plunged into a brutal civil war, NATO intervened to protect civilians, backing the rebel forces. After 8 months of intense fighting, the end came in his hometown of Sirte. On October 20th, 2011, Gaddafi was captured hiding in a drainage pipe. He was killed shortly after, and the graphic images of his final moments were broadcast around the globe, a shocking end to his long reign. Today, Gaddafi's legacy is fiercely debated. Was he a Pan-African visionary who stood up to Western imperialism, or a ruthless tyrant who terrorized his own people and hollowed out his country's institutions? What is certain is that after his fall, Libya descended into chaos, torn apart by warring militias. The power vacuum he left behind proves just how completely he had built the nation around himself. His story is a powerful reminder of how the line between revolutionary and dictator can be terrifyingly thin. Thanks for watching. If you found this story interesting, be sure to like and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Have you ever wondered how we went from throwing pointy sticks to launching missiles that can cross continents? It's a wild journey, and it tells us a lot about who we are. Let us take a trip through humanity's endless battle and see how our tools of conflict have evolved. In the beginning, it was all about muscle power. Think about our earliest ancestors. Their weapons were simple extensions of their own bodies: rocks, clubs, and sharpened spears. The goal was straightforward: get close and personal. For thousands of years, warfare was about strength, numbers, and the courage to face your enemy eye to eye. Spears gave way to swords, and simple bows evolved into powerful longbows that could rain arrows down on a battlefield. The sound of an ancient battle was the clash of metal, the thud of arrows, and the shouts of men. Then, everything changed with a bang. Gunpowder, invented in China, slowly made its way across the globe. Suddenly, a simple peasant with a musket could take down a knight in shining armor. This was a massive shift. Fortresses that had stood for centuries could be brought down by cannons. Warfare became louder, smokier, and deadlier from a distance. The age of chivalry was over, and the age of firepower had begun. This era saw the rise of disciplined armies marching in formation, firing volleys of shots, and turning battlefields into organized chaos. The Industrial Revolution then put weapon development into overdrive. Factories could now mass-produce rifles, artillery, and ammunition on a scale never seen before. The machine gun, introduced in the late 19th century, transformed the battlefield into a meat grinder. World War I became a brutal lesson in what happens when old tactics meet new, industrialized weapons. Millions died in trenches, caught between barbed wire and relentless machine gun fire. This was warfare on an industrial scale, impersonal and horrifyingly efficient. The 20th century didn't slow down. It gave us the tank, a metal beast that could roll over trenches and fortifications. It gave us the airplane, which took the battle to the skies and allowed us to strike deep behind enemy lines. And then, the ultimate weapon arrived, the atomic bomb. With the press of a button, a single device could now wipe out an entire city. The nature of war changed forever. The fear of mutual destruction created a new kind of tension, a Cold War, where the biggest battles were fought not with soldiers, but with spies, technology, and the threat of annihilation. Today, we're in the age of smart weapons and cyber warfare. Drones controlled from thousands of miles away can strike with pinpoint accuracy. Missiles can be guided by satellites to hit a target the size of a car. But the new frontier is digital. Wars can be fought without firing a single shot, by disabling power grids, crashing financial markets, and spreading misinformation online. The battlefield is no longer just on land, sea, or air. It's also in cyberspace. From a sharpened spear to a line of code, the evolution of our weapons is a reflection of our own ingenuity and, sadly, our capacity for conflict. It's a story of constant innovation, where each new weapon creates a new defense, which in turn inspires an even newer weapon. It's a cycle that has shaped our history and will continue to shape our future. What do you think the next chapter in this story will be? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you found this journey through military history interesting, make sure to like and subscribe for more. See you next time.